Thank you for tuning into this episode of My Intuition Speaks Patois. And you don't know such love talk. I hope you all are connecting with self because today I am connecting with self. I believe self-care is beginning to show itself for what it really is, okay? In the midst of all this change, all these shifts and realizations of self, surroundings, and energies, you better believe self-care is today's topic. When going through change, and I don't mean over it, okay? Not under it, through it. It can be really rough and confusing. And I believe that when I'm in this moment, the old me is in the midst of detaching itself, and that emptiness that I feel, it becomes flooded with emotion until the new me steps in with the new mindset and the new decisions, the new outlook. I think it's okay not to feel like yourself sometimes. And, those moments where you're doubting yourself is the chance to answer those painful questions. Shadow work is really a great way to do that, and I'll get into that a little later. But in the midst of that emotion, never have I felt so lost and empty as when I'm waiting on the transition to complete itself. When I allow myself to feel what I'm feeling, only then do I come out of my emotional breakdown, panic attack, anxiety attack, whatever you choose to call it or whatever you experience. Only then do I come out with a more focused view on myself, as well as recognition of who I am and whether it's something I wanted to hear or not. These are times when we burst out the self-care, okay? The grounding techniques, the spiritual tools, whatever keeps your boat afloat. Taking time for self-care is essential in this life, and sometimes self takes the back seat. Self-care is also sold as this luxury thing that can only be achieved through expensive procedures and services. This is, of course, not to knock those services or the people who do them, but I intend to highlight the factors of our self-care routines that aren't getting enough love and attention. Self-care is not only something that varies in activity, but also varies in your needs at that time. So it's so important to listen to yourself. I believe that that's step one to me, listening to yourself, listening to your body's cues, listening to your intuition. It's a form of self-care that is continuous, as is the breath, maintaining that safe space within yourself allows you to build that trust and therefore that intuitive connection and communication. And there's people that refer to intuition as a sixth sense, and I definitely agree with that analogy. Like when I think of situations that I've been able to remove myself from before they become even more of a problem. And even the times I didn't listen to my intuition and things turned upside down, when everything is over, I'm always thinking to myself that at some point in the fight to keep this thing that I knew it wasn't going to work. I knew it wasn't going to last. I knew it wasn't going to be worth my time and my energy, but I still did it. And it happens to the best of us. But that's why life is a journey rather than this destination to destination mindset that we've allowed ourselves to believe in and mold our lives after. It's messing a lot of us up, and it sure was messing me up for a while, continuing to force myself to believe that things weren't happening for me unless I could see them in the physical. And honestly, there's a lot of things that we pass by daily, you know what I'm saying, without looking at things with an eye of gratitude. It's so easy to take things for granted in this life until they're taken away from you, and sweetie, you don't want to get there. No. Self-care has shown up in a plethora of different forms for myself. Personally, I decided shortly after I had locked my hair to stop eating meat. I think it was sometime in August. It wasn't until a few weeks ago that I began to realize the effect that food was having on my mental state. Now, disclaimer. I'm not calling this out for everyone because I'm not that vegetarian who pushes it on my friends, nor do I hold myself to a higher standard because of the way that I eat, okay? But I know there's a lot of people who have made the decision to eat better for multiples of reasons, but they begin to bash or push that lifestyle on those who haven't chose it. And I just think that's kind of whack. I think that's really trash, especially when there's so many individuals that live in food desert areas, so many people who cannot get to that stuff. You know, like it's not that deep. Like, people just really need to calm down. But I just wanted to be clear about that, because I'm really the last person to shove veganism down your throat, although I know the importance, okay? But my intention when I had gave up meat was to just rid my body of the energies and the chemicals that came with the meat I was eating, and also just to clear a pathway for spiritual communication as well. And now, trust me, that spiritual communication has pulled up, okay? My spirit guides was like, cousin, where you been? Okay. And fun fact, I've always wanted to cut out eating meat. It's always been a goal since I was young. I just thought it was going to be a lot harder than it really was. So I just let my fear kind of push me away from the plans I had for myself. But I've always wanted to do this. But just a few weeks ago, your girl did it again. I ate meat. I did. And I was messed up. Like, internally, externally, spiritually, I felt completely disconnected, and emotionally, I was a wreck. I was spilling negativity into my existence through my thoughts, and they were thoughts that didn't even correlate with what I had going on in my life at the time, but a lot of it did, and that's what was blowing me, you know? So the fact that I'd made so many improvements, or at least I thought, but at that time, everything was just so overwhelming that I just couldn't anymore. Now, I will say that these emotions did have to do with other factors, but I do believe that the chemicals and energy from the flesh I ate was ripping my body a new one. For sure. Like, I didn't honor myself in that time. You know, even when I was going through things, I still chose to fill my body with toxins and that recycled ass energy. And it's not like it was a good energy. Like, I was eating dead animal meat, like from an animal that knew it was about to die and was in fear. But I'm not going to get into that. That's just really my process of how I felt that energy transfer through my body. I began to start feeling fear for my life and fear of things that weren't even happening. You know what I'm saying? Anxiety, you know, that's what it's labeled as. But I've been trying to call my anxiety out for what it is rather than just labeling it as my anxiety, because I've noticed that it's something that I, with that title, have been allowing to take over my life. And I'm not trying to pour this out into anybody else's situation and say that you are overreacting or that you do not deal with anxiety, because that's not the case. I'm just saying that for me, I'm not going to let the word anxiety have anything over me no more. And I barely even want to go by that title. I'm just somebody who happens to be highly sensitive. I can sense a lot of different things, and my body just reacts to them differently. When I don't like something and I don't speak up about it, my body reacts differently, because my body wants me to talk. My body wants me to release things. But when I sit there and I hold it in, you know what I'm saying? I feel like it's a me thing. But shortly after all of this, I was crying uncontrollably about things that I just got done writing affirmations for. You know, like, this is real. This is my reality. And the thing is that after about 3 to 4 months into this, my panic attacks practically vanished. Like, I had plenty of down days for sure, but nothing like full-on panic attacks. It really wasn't until my last breakdown that I was able to make the clear connection that I was playing myself. Honestly, it's the self-sabotage and the self-love episode for me. The only time I ever crave animals is when I'm feeling toxic emotions. And I'm not sure if anybody else has gone through anything like this, but I definitely live it. Definitely my reality. I be mad and I be ready to eat a chicken sandwich, like real life. I know it sounds funny, but like for real, like my body is so used to sitting in a negative space and accepting less than what I deserve that my body just remembers that. It remembers how I used to treat myself. It's a lot more it's a much more comfortable place than the place of healing that I've been finding myself in lately. So I can definitely see how my body would run back to its place of comfort, which I identify as, I will go and identify as my anxiety as a overall word. But for me, like, breaking it down and calling it anxiety is just easier for me to tell other people. Like, the word anxiety is not really for me. It's not really what I experience. It's just this title that I've been living by so that I can let people know, like, this is what I be going through sometimes. But then when I have those moments of those unexplainable things, it's like, oh my gosh, so is it anxiety or is it more than this? You know what I'm saying? And I try not to overbear myself with those thoughts as well, but it can be really, really hard. I'm super off topic. Let's slide back. So back to foods. The foods that are mostly in my diet, like right now, at least on a weekly basis, are like avocados, bell peppers, onions, spinach, tomatoes, and eggs. I be eating eggs because I'm not a full vegan yet. Vegans don't eat animals or the things that animals produce. So that's like cream cheese, milkshakes, cake with milk and eggs. It's like a whole thing. But I try to eat food that comes from the earth as much as possible because I just believe that that's where my body's main source of energy should be coming from, I get it from the sun. Energy, that is. I get it from the ground beneath my feet. So I try to meet it in the middle, which I believe is within myself, the center, my stomach. I really identify my center as my heart chakra, but I can also identify my center with my self-worth and self-identity, which lies behind my solar plexus. Eating the way I did fed my physical body as well as my subconscious mind. It freed me to start believing in myself and seeing something in myself. In the midst of all this, self-acceptance began to be more attainable for myself, and my appreciation for myself in making that choice for so many reasons allowed for my love for myself to grow. I loved my body by feeding it well, and so in return, it shows me love through exuding energy, that I've given it from the foods that I provided it. It gives me the energy to even have that self-love, like to do the things for my body that result in growth and progression. It can be a whole thing for some people when they eat meat after trying to give it up. But I honestly decided to just give myself grace about it because who's going to tell me what I can and can't eat and when I want to? Like, I'm in the process of extending that same love I showed myself through that situation in other areas of my life, giving myself some room to breathe and not taking things so seriously, remembering to have an element of play, you know what I'm saying, in your lifestyle. This is another form of self-care, okay? This is another necessary thing in this life. Life is meant to be lived. Life is love in full effect, as Dr. Chill would say. Okay, now how do I keep playful energy in my life when it's nothing but obstacles? And I feel you, but let's try to push ourselves out of that mindset. Obstacles arrive so that you can prove things to yourself. Are you ready? Are you really prepared? Are you gonna give up? Because you might as well not, because there's always gonna be situations in life that are gonna call you to prove to yourself, aka the universe, that you deserve your placement, wherever that may be, period. My hope is that you can be gentle with yourself through the process and all the processes to come, remembering that you're here to ride the wave, okay, not drown. So take days off to learn how to float. Give yourself grace. This feels like our first time doing this life thing, but it's not. And that's why we're so determined at the end of the day, because we know we got this. And it's self-care that aids in the pills that we have to swallow in this journey. I don't know about you, but I owe it to myself to slow down. And I most definitely owe it to myself to remain connected and in communication with my inner child. And I'm going to say it again because somebody didn't hear me the first time. Give yourself grace. You've been through so much that it's almost impossible to talk about sometimes because we've dug it so deep. And I spoke shortly about shadow work in my first episode, as I'll be providing some at the end of each episode to come. And today I wanted to talk about it for those who have never done shadow work, don't know what shadow work is, or are dealing with limiting beliefs holding you back to even looking into shadow work. Now, for me, the first step to shadow work was realizing and accepting that I did in fact have this shadow side of myself. I think we can get so caught up in our hurt sometimes that we forget that we can be just as low vibrational as those who may have done us wrong. You know, especially when it's family, because we've learned so many traits from our abusers. But simply put, shadow work is when you create space for yourself to question and explore the answers of this part of yourself that you don't really identify with or aren't really much conscious of. Okay, your negative thoughts, traumatic experiences, certain traits you've picked up, all sorts of things. Honestly, it gives you a chance to address the BS, really. Like, shadow work is mostly done, or at least how I've seen it, through journal questions that allow you to really sit down with yourself and address what we prefer to suppress. So it's not the most comfortable thing, but I'll tell you that once you begin to know more about yourself, the more comfort you'll begin to find within yourself. It's really important to, again, give yourself grace. You've done and are doing so much. And the things you've been through live in your body as well as your subconscious mind. A little bit of what I was talking about earlier, you know, having that recognition in your body, and you might not even recognize it yourself. You know what I'm saying? You might not see it for yourself, that this is because it's something that we do day to day. We get used to having these things in our rhythm and in our flow, but there's things we've just got to drop. There's things we've been needing to we've been needing to drop. Been needing to let go, been needing to release, things that no longer serve us, that have been lingering for too long. The question is, are you going to keep letting them stay rent free? And shout out to you for knowing who you are, okay? Shout out to you for shining through regardless of the negative connotations you've been carrying of yourself. Keep shining, period, okay? Because your light is going to lead somebody through their darkest days. Thank you for this talk about self-care today. Remember, okay, self-care has infinite forms. Listen to your body and provide yourself what you desire, whether that's reading, taking a walk, doing something nostalgic, eating your favorite meal. Just remember to honor yourself in the process, okay? Guidance.